All right, welcome everyone to UNC's next alumni career panel on the topic of rivers and waters. Certainly an interesting topic, particularly for a Western state like Colorado. And I'm so pleased that we have alumni joining us as well as a moderator from our faculty to talk about this interesting area and how our students and graduates can develop careers in this discipline. So my name is Lindsay Crum. I have the privilege of serving as UNC's Assistant Vice President for Alumni Relations. And we enjoy having these alumni career panel series for our students and our alumni to connect with one another on different industry topics. I am joined by a wonderful colleague and beloved professor, Chelsea, and I'm going to kick it off to you to do introductions. I will exit the conversation, keep the recording going, and join you at the end as we wrap up today. So Chelsea, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lindsay. And I really appreciate you and all the panelists being here today. For those who are in attendance, this is also being recorded. And so there will be a video available at some point afterwards that we'll share out with a link. So if you don't see that or aren't on my student listservs in geography and sustainability, just email me and we can get you connected. So today we're going to be talking about careers in water and rivers, and I'm really excited to have four really awesome alumni here who majored in all different things: geography, math and physics, environmental earth science, minors in sustainability and GIS. And so part of what we're going to talk about today are all the different pathways into working into the water and rivers world. We're going to start out with introductions, and I'm going to have the panel introduce themselves by starting out with the person who is most recently graduated. So you're going to hear from folks who are a few years out of their bachelor's degree here at UNC, up until folks who have been out for a while and have done a lot of amazing things with their careers. So the panelists actually have the list in their chat box if you open that. But we're going to start out with Katie Fletcher, who is a graduate of 2018 and currently works for the state water sustainability office. Then we'll be going on to Theron Verna, who actually Theron did his master's degree here in addition to an undergraduate degree in environmental earth science, and just started a job in a water commissioner office. Then we'll go on to Adam Wilson, who I think has like a lot of things going on since he graduated in 2010, but is running a really cool water business that we're going to hear about shortly. And then Scott Hummer, graduate of '89, has been working as a water commissioner for a long time, especially in the Yampa area, which we do have some summer courses that go to the Yampa River. So Katie, if you'll start out just briefly, remind folks of your major, the year you graduated, and then a brief synopsis of from graduation and how did you get to where you are?
Yeah, well, I'm really happy to be here. Good to see you, Chelsea. So I graduated in 2018 and my major was environmental earth sciences, but I did have a sustainability minor. And I'm pretty fortunate to have landed where I am so close out of my degree, but I did my internship my senior year, my spring semester with the city and county of Denver in their environmental compliance office. And then I actually currently work for Denver Water in the sustainability office. It's not quite to the state, but maybe someday. And I actually got that job through a temp agency first, and then was brought on permanently at Denver Water. So pretty brief journey, but that's where I am currently.
Thanks, Katie. Theron?
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on here, Chelsea and Lindsay. Yeah, my undergrad was a Bachelor of Arts in Geography, specifically Global Area Studies. And then, as Chelsea mentioned, I went on to complete my Professional Science Master's with the newly founded program with Dr. Hoyt at the time in Environmental Geosciences. I finished that in August of 19. So from there, I met my wife in college, and so she had another year and a half to complete her master's degree. So I stayed in Greeley and I did a lot of arboriculture, a lot of forestry work, getting familiar with the world of the technical side of things, working chainsaws, chippers, things like that. And then my wife had an opportunity to start her career, go back to her hometown in Pueblo, Colorado. So we moved down there in 2021 and I got on with environmental testing agency, testing the Pueblo smelter site and homes surrounding that area for lead and arsenic levels. Moved on there to a planner one position with the city of Pueblo. And then after that was blessed to have the opportunity to step on with the Division of Water Resources as a deputy water commissioner and a groundwater data analyst. The ultimate goal for me is land conservation and open space management, but water is a huge part of that. And I've just been blessed to pick up this in my, as Katie mentioned, so early in my career to kind of get this great experience to set me up for the next step. So, yep.
Thanks, Theron. Adam?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I guess, like you said, I have quite an interesting, I guess, path since I graduated. I graduated in 2010 with a degree in math and in physics. I was planning on going to get my PhD right after that. Met a friend who said, let's start some companies. I did that. In 2010, we started an amazing company called Sphero. We were lucky enough to make things like this. This is a little toy that works on like iPads or iPhones and teaches kids how to program. So that company is actually still going in Boulder, Colorado, but 120 people that work there. So again, I founded that, started it, ran it for a long time. In 2018, I sort of had an epiphany. I'm a Colorado native, have always been here, lived in places that were faced with scarcity. I said, why is nobody tracking water? Like at a really in-depth way. Why is there no Google Maps? Like when I go on Google, it tells me exactly, it'll take you like an hour to get to Denver. But when I get a flood alert, it's like some sort of random, might happen in a few days, it might be this much or this much. And so I wanted to start a company to help combat that. I thought that the reason that that exists is there's not enough water data. Water data is actually very kind of hard to come about. And so we invented this amazing new sensor. It's called GNSS reflectometry. If there's any hydrologists or people who are into that, it's a sensor that takes advantage of reflections from GPS satellites and gives us super precise measurement for water. And it's really cheap. So I started another company in 2019 with a co-founder from the European Space Agency to do this. And now we're actually deploying to a lot of different countries and here in the US to help do flood mitigation. So it's kind of a long journey, but water is the ultimate thing. You're absolutely right. It's the scariest thing and it'll be the most important asset the world will ever have.
Thank you, Adam. And Scott, I'll repeat the question here also because you're the last person, but we'd like to know what you majored in at UNC, the year you graduated, and a brief synopsis of your career up until this point.
Adam's going to be a hard act to follow.
Nice.
My name is Scott Hummer. I graduated from UNC in 1989. My degrees, I have a BA in geography. I went to work for the Colorado Division of Water Resources 4 months after I graduated in December of 1989. I went to work as Theron mentioned as a deputy water commissioner on the north slope of the Grand Mesa. I was there for about 5 months and I was transferred to a newly created full-time water commissioner position in the Blue River Basin. Spent almost 20 years in that basin. I left state service and went to work for the Colorado Water Trust as their projects manager. I also worked as the general manager for the North Poudre Irrigation Company, distributing water to large area of ag land and municipalities in the Larimer and Weld County areas. And didn't really like working for a board of directors and went back to work for the Division of Water Resources to finish my career last June.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. So our first question for the panelists is about jobs, internship, and coursework while you were at UNC and connecting that to your industry. Some of you are in positions where you can hire people and you're managing people. So also thinking about not just your experience at UNC, but also the context of what you're looking for in a new employee. What kinds of things helped you get to your current industry? And was your specific degree a BA? Some of you have BA, BS, master's degree. Were those important requirements to get to your current position? And we're going to go in reverse order from what we just did. So Scott, you'll get to start us off.
I was lucky enough to grow up in agriculture, so I had some background of water in general. Colorado water rights, how important our most precious natural resources to us. My coursework at UNC, I think, most importantly, helped me in critical thinking. I was a non-traditional college student. I didn't start my first classwork at UNC until I was 24, and I graduated when I was 29. I had a little bit of different perspective about being in school at that particular time. I think that the independent study project that I was able to work on as a senior was a great help to me. Just being responsible for yourself, for your own work product. And as a water commissioner, you work by yourself. You don't get any help. And you've probably got several hundred miles to cover and several thousand water rights to deal with and several hundred water users that may not like the decisions that you make. So being able to think on your feet, I think that's really something that I learned at UNC.
Wonderful. Adam?
Yeah, I think, well, let me go back in backwards order of the questions, I suppose. For me, I took physics and math, and randomly enough, the device I'm building takes into account directly physics and math. I mean, we use optics, we use everything. I literally have physics and math sitting here on my papers, right? We do it all the time. So it's really, really valuable. The cool part that our company, I think, brings, which is a little different than normal traditional water companies, is that we're looking for data scientists. We're looking for back-end cloud engineers, hardware engineering, sort of this other set that you might not always associate with just the water field. I know for sure I talked to a lot of people who know a lot about pipes and pumps, that side of water, but this is a different side. This is water data. So being data scientist is a big thing. And I'm the same as you, Scott. I actually didn't attend school right out of college, right out of high school. I hit the real world first and realized that I have to go to college to do what I want to do. And UNC was the place that let me do it. When I was a senior and a junior and a sophomore, I was able to do the research celebration and put all of my energy into these crazy projects. So all of them taught me how to deliver and speak and have public speaking. And I think all of those things were vital. I would not have gotten that somewhere else. And we are hiring. We're a small startup. We raised funds. So we're a small startup in the Series A round and looking to hire data scientists and software engineering all the time.
Wonderful. And as a data scientist, that makes me so happy. The research day that Adam mentioned still happens. And so we have that as a Thursday in April. So when you see all those signs about research day, go and jump in and participate if you're not already doing that in a class. So thank you for mentioning that, Adam. All right, Theron.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a quick plug to now Dean Dorner. He was super big on pushing in this particular career I'm in to a lot of the students because, again, the key crux, as Scott talked about, of water and everything. So that was something that initially, when this job came around and building my career, that I remember Professor Dorner really pushing that when I was in school, and a different opportunity came up. But again, the experience is the experience regardless. DWR right now, in many positions, if you're in a deputy water commissioner, even sometimes a water commissioner, it's kind of a mixed bag. They understand that a lot of water users come from an agricultural background. And so a traditional, like a BA or a BS or a master's degree or something like that, isn't always required, but they do have a 5-year experience with that. So it's kind of an either or a lot of times in those positions, where if you have 5 years as a farmer, rancher, ranch hand, or a ditch rider or something, you can get it, you can compete in those positions and those minimum requirements. Or if you have your Bachelor of Art in geography or your BS in, hydrology or whatever it may be, that is a substitute back and forth. I think DWR kind of has a flexible way of hiring with that, because they understand that water affects everyone, and not everyone, as we've seen, comes to these careers traditionally and just the straight out of high school going to it. Yeah, for myself, I believe that my career takes a little bit more time to establish because open space and land conservation is so big. But what I can say is that my BA and my PSM have helped me jump into career positions much quicker than some of my peers. So if it's applied to and understanding at UNC and building up those technical skills and networking and communications as well, being able to speak your ideas well to people and have them understand it and be cooperative in that, I think has really helped me bolster my career very quickly. and help me in that. So I am appreciative to all the professors that helped me in that. Bywater Reyes, I think Professor Dunn is now emeritus, which I feel bad for some because Mr. Dunn's the man. Like now that Professor Romulo, all these folks in geography and earth sciences were huge in establishing that base.
Thank you, Theron. And Dr. Dunn still teaches his rivers class in the summer, even though he's emeritus. So when you're a professor, you never actually fully retire, it seems like. So
He can't either.
Katie?
He's so busy. He can't.
Katie?
Yeah, so I think Denver Water kind of is an interesting position because if you want to get involved in water, I mean, there's literally everything here. We have finance, we have electricians, we have our own trades. We have a whole variety of opportunities just generally to get involved with water. And Denver Water is a place where they encourage a lot of lateral moves. So if I decided tomorrow I wasn't really interested in sustainability, I could probably go see if anything is opened up in our water resources division. There's lots of moving around, lots of training opportunities, and there is a great summer internship program. And lots of different teams and divisions put in for interns to help with projects that are actually, very real world, very applicable, which is great. For my position specifically, the bachelor's degree was a requirement, so that was great. But specifically at UNC, the thing that helped me the most get into this position was my time with Student LEAF, which is Student Leadership and Environmental Action Fund, and doing projects on campus. And my role in that, I was able to apply directly to my position now. And they counted that as years of experience, even though I was doing it while I was in college. So that not only gave me, a leg up with competition that I had for the position, but it also helped me a lot with considering, like, I know, Theron, you mentioned, like, sometimes they will count years of experience versus education for like the job application. That did help me there in that regard. So I would say any of the extracurriculars that UNC offers for that kind of stuff is huge. Also, my internship was great. Admittedly, the temp agency that was hiring for my position before it was permanent, they just saw that I had stormwater experience and thought, hey, stormwater, Denver water, boom, that's the same thing. So sometimes you get lucky in that way too, but I would just definitely say, like, any sort of internship or opportunity that you can find is huge and can give you a huge leg up in the job hunt.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie. Our next question is, what does your day-to-day look like at your job? And do you feel like you're making a difference in the world? For this question, we're going to start out with Theron and Katie, because both of you are working in offices with other folks, and then move on to Adam and Scott, because you're in positions where you're running a company or running a big office. And so that's a little bit different context. So starting off with Theron, what's your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so I'm in District 10, which is Fountain Creek. Specifically, it's funny how things come around. In my master's, Professor Bywater Reyes and I heavily studied that for stream restoration, and having it on a day-to-day, it is one of the craziest creeks I've ever experienced. So we do runs on it a lot of, and Scott will speak into this after 20 years. He knows much better than I do, but we have things called alternate points of diversions to a surface water right. So if someone has a ditch, let's say they want to apply to use that surface water right on a well, using the same amount, same priority date, things like that. On Fountain Creek, that's a majority of what goes on because of the, this is where my geomorphology background helped. It is such a movable creek. It has huge signs of deposition and incision and sinuosity and braiding and everything. So a lot of these farmers and ranchers over the years have just like, I'm not dealing with a standard ditch that's going to get washed out. I'm going to do an alternate well, a couple 100 feet off. So my day-to-day usually looks like a couple times a week going out into the field, measuring data from those wells, compiling them along with stream gauges from the USGS and then DWR along Fountain Creek, and then running that in a USGS transit loss model program, which models all the transit losses between nodes on our creek. for water users and the public at large. So that's a majority of our day, is just getting that physical data and then compiling it for users. And then after that, we're doing a lot of field inspections. We're going on dam safety inspections. We're working with fishermen who call in. We're working with farmers who are calling and asking about conditional rights. You know, anybody who touches water, really, we're, whether over email, over call, or on site visits, talking with them a lot. So it's a lot of windshield time, a lot of time hiking through the fields, up on dams, in the mountains, different things like that. So it's a very active job. But it also requires a lot of skill with Excel, with accounting, things like that, which I'm sure Scott will be able to speak on in more depth. But yeah, it's a very interesting kind of diverse gig.
Thank you, Theron. Katie?
I would echo what Theron said, in that what I do can be very diverse. It can really range from day to day. Our sustainability team is focused really on our internal operations as a water utility. So in a sense, we kind of act as consultants for Denver Water. So some days I might be focusing heavily on waste reduction and waste diversion. So I might be dealing with our waste contractors. Other days I'm helping support our sustainability guide that we have, which has our goals. Currently we're working on what it would take to create a carbon neutral plan for the whole water utility. So we really have a whole big range. And I also, one of the fun things that I get to do is do a lot of education and outreach of our employees to talk about sustainability, to talk about all these different things that we do. I know, Chelsea, you'll appreciate this. I know UNC does Earth Week. We do Earth Month at Denver Water, so I still get to do that, which is really fun. But yeah, there's just a whole lot going on. And similar, we have Denver Water is the third largest property owner in the state of Colorado. So as much as I can, I try to go out with our environmental compliance team when they go out to do audits of our different facilities and our properties, and just see where we can make improvements and efficiencies in our whole system. So lots to do. We'll probably never run out of improvements that we can make.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie. And we actually have branched out to Earth Month now. So it's really hectic. We're in the middle of it.
That's great.
Awesome. Okay, Scott and then Adam.
Well, since I'm retired, my days are a little different. But as a water commissioner, I worked for the Division of Water Resources for 26 and a half years. And the number one responsibility of every water commissioner in the state of Colorado is dam safety. In the Blue River Basin, I had Dillon Reservoir and Green Mountain Reservoir, two of the most key reservoirs affecting water rights and water use along the Front Range. Water commissioners are charged with the daily administration of water rights throughout the state of Colorado. State of Colorado is broken up into 7 water divisions. Big, the Colorado River Basin, the South Platte Basin. In each one of those divisions are water districts. Taryn mentioned he worked in Water District 10, which is Fountain Creek. I worked in Water District 36, which is the Blue River Basin, and Water District 58, which is the Upper Yampa. It was my responsibility as a water commissioner to figure out how much water is available in the river every day and distribute it to those water rights that were in priority on that day, 24/7, 7 days a week, literally for almost 6 straight months. Throw everything in between. You attend public meetings, you provide press information to the press, you talk with, you meet with elected officials, you meet with environmental groups, the 120 individuals that work as Colorado's water commissioners are Colorado's water experts. Every other water attorney, water engineer, they want to know how to do what they do for their clients. They get the information that water commissioners produce on a daily basis. And as Taryn mentioned, that's collecting data. That's how we're protecting ourselves Again, that's how we protect ourselves. That's how an individual water user protects themselves. That's how our state protects itself when we're dealing with issues regarding the Colorado Compact, for example. Data is important, and what Adam's doing is a real good step in the right direction. And I'll stop.
That's a great segue over to Adam. Okay. What does
Sure.
your day-to-day look like?
Okay, it's a little different. It's a little different. What I like about, I guess, let me just be really general though, about the company that I started. It could be in anybody's field, from membranes to removing PFAS to better data to better, like they build better pumps, better systems. We just chose water data because A, I really like making IoT devices, but also B, it seemed like the downfall. It was like, if we could make something that was only a few $100s and could not be in the water and help build an entire data lake, is what that's called, that would be fantastic. That real time. So our sensors give data to the last minute. So I can go and look at, like, a couple of our customers. We have Broomfield, right? We can go look at the reservoirs in Broomfield and see it to the last minute. And they use that to do exactly like what you said, Scott. They're tracking every day. Are we gonna have enough water? If there's a big rain, do we need to let it go? They need to have big action. They take big actions, and a lot of people from that reservoir are using it for agriculture. So it's vital in this area. But my day-to-day as an entrepreneur, which you could start a company in any field along water, is a lot about the beginning of the day is usually teamwork, right? Getting most of our teams put in place, but then also you get to decide what you want to do. So for us, we try to find places that are impacted, stories that will matter. Sometimes when we deploy our sensors, and what we work on is actually giving people flood alerts in towns that do not have any sort of flood monitoring or flood alerts. And the way we do it is all of our data is on the cloud, and we use a very sophisticated artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms on top of this, plus adding our own data to specific places to be able to give people forecasts they could never have before. If you think about, like, a lot of the customers who we're actually going to replace their sensors have a staff gauge, and somebody drives up there kind of like once every couple of days and measures it. And that is fine for, like, the past, but we do not think that's the future. That's not how we're going to get a hold of this. I actually read the Colorado water plan as well. And it seems like when you read these things, somebody needs to do something. And the law is not going to protect it. It's the water goes where it wants to go. So this is something that I was very passionate about, but every day that I start, it's almost like a brand new day at a startup. We get to choose where we're going to go. There's also a lot of pressure on that. You can fail on your own. There's not a lot of backing. There's no, like, I want to choose a different job. Actually, it's no, you kind of sat into this job and you will do this for 5 to 10 years until it succeeds. And I think that's really interesting. Again, it's a new world of water. I think innovation in water is one of the bigger fields I see for venture capitalism. So that's maybe another thing. If you're going to start a company, you need money. Well, if you're going into a field that doesn't have a lot of maybe urgency, that money is going to be very hard to get. But right now, if you start a company and you have a new genius way to filter water or do sanitation or divert water or water data, there are people who want to fund this. There are big companies who need this, who want this. And so that's a very good part about what we're doing. Is it's good to see a lot more people want to put money into this, because these startups can't exist without some funding, and that kind of funding is helping. Again, we're helping many communities be much more on top of their water stewardship than they were before.
Thank you, Adam. And just as a heads up, there are some questions starting to come in on the Q&A, and that's just fine. So if you're watching and signed on, you can find the Q&A tab on the webinar screen. Some of our panelists have started answering those questions, and that's fine too. But at the end, I'll read these questions aloud for the recording, and we'll have a chance for the panelists to answer those. So if you do have questions, feel free to put them in as we're talking. So for our next question, this one is a little bit reflective. And so we're going to go back and forth between folks who are further along in their career to folks who are earlier in their career. The question is, knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your college years, is there anything you would do again or anything that you would change? So we're going to start out with Scott, go to Katie, then Adam, and then Theron.
Start school sooner, but I grew up in the 1970s, so it was a different time. That life experience is invaluable though. But if you're thinking about a career and you need that education, think about starting soon. But that life experience is also very important. An advanced degree probably would have been helpful throughout my career, and better technical skills, pens and ink. So as Theron mentioned, Excel and that kind of software was developed as I worked through the years of my career. So I was never ever really able to keep up and become that expert with both. But I think that's something that folks need to keep in mind. Expertise. Become an expert in something. Whether it's water right, whether what it may be, but that expert, be a go-to person.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Katie?
I have very few regrets about how my college experience went. I think it went really well. I had a great time. But one thing that I wish I would have done is do more GIS. I think GIS is really applicable in a lot of different things. We're fortunate here at Denver Water to have a team that is entirely dedicated to GIS, where they do any sort of GIS stuff that we want. They'll just do it for us, but I would like to be able to do it myself. And I also would probably start looking more into different certifications that you can get without any additional resources, or they're very minimal resources. Like I know in sustainability, your LEED certification is great. And like if your employer will pay for it, awesome. But a lot of sustainability jobs want you to have LEED coming in, and it's not very expensive to do it. So focusing on that. I know I actually took a class that gave us our OSHA HAZWOPER at the end of it, which was great. So finding classes like that either at UNC or externally, I think is never a bad idea.
Great, thanks, Katie. And then the LEED certificate that Katie mentions it's an acronym that stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And so that's run by the US Green Building Council. So if you're looking that up. We also have a lot of certificates here at UNC that you can do with some of either your elective credits or mixing and matching your LACs. And so definitely talk to your advisors about what options there are, because this also speaks to what Scott said about becoming an expert in something. So find your niche, and it could be something like writing. You're a really good writer, or you're a really good public speaker. And so there's skills you can bring in to this world from all the different disciplines that we have available. Adam.
Sure. I think I mentioned the research celebration. I think that's critical. Something you do on your own, but have the support from a professor, but they let you run, like, what do you want to think about and discuss right now? And that led me to be an independent thinker. It also let me be a little bit more thoughtful about my networking. So at my time at UNC, I did the Rocket Sat program, which was down at UCCS, or like at UCS. Down in Boulder. I don't remember what their college is called. That's how it don't mean nothing. But the college down in Boulder, I worked at, up in Fort Collins with their college, and it actually led me to meet my co-founder for Sphero. Was through these programs of just going to do Rocket Sat at other. So really, a lot of my professors pushed me out through these programs, Rocket Sat, Demo Sat, these little physics programs that we had. But they let me become really good at networking, and I would say I would have done more of that if I could have. I think there was times when I passed up on it because I thought, I got too much workload or too many classes. And to be honest, I would have rather taken a B in some of those classes and done these networking events.
Theron?
Yeah, I have nothing but gratitude towards my whole college career. I came in as a football scholarship athlete. So I started in 14 in the summer, and I was from Western Colorado. Completely different world if any of you have ever been out there. And I came over, and Greeley welcomed me and the football team in Weld County, and it's a beautiful place. I love it, and I consider it home. So I don't think I regret anything. I did have a little bit more. My summers were filled up because of football. So I only had a few summers here and there to do internships. I was able to work classes into my lifting schedules and practices and stuff. But if you're not an athlete, I would say take advantage of your summers. what got me into what I eventually want to get into in conservation open space management is working with Karen Scopel with the City of Greeley Open Spaces. And just those 4 months that I was with her really sparked something from when I was a kid that clicked, everything clicked and was like, oh yeah, I see. This is the world that I want to be in. And then a couple years later in my master's working, as Adam said, directed by Professor Bywater Reyes, and her key, she's one of the few that work on geomorphology, which is a very, technical world, and just that integrated with the passion I had for, conservation and keeping Colorado what Colorado has been, and keeping beauty and the agriculture and the wildlife and the culture here, and conserving that, I think is, something that I would say is key, is reaching out to those professors, connecting with the ones that you have, whether it's a good personal relationship or even if it's just strictly down to like, this person knows what they're talking about technically, and I'm going to soak up everything I can from them as much as possible, I think is great. So I have no regrets. I met my wife. I played football. I got 2 degrees. I love UNC. Go Bears.
Yay, go Bears. So Adam actually started us off into our next question. And I don't know if that was on purpose because he doesn't know that I was going to have him go first. But the next question is that everybody always talks about the importance of networking for careers. So can you explain a little bit about how you view networking and how that has helped you in your profession? So we're going to start out with Adam and then go to Theron, then Scott, and then Katie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't know networking before I went to UNC technically. So I was like a little naive to it. After UNC and starting my own company, I realized how important it was to know people and to build the relationships way ahead of time. Right. So meaning not just when I need to go ask a venture capitalist for money, do I start meeting them then, but I talk to them about ahead of time about what I'm up to and what I'm doing and my vision. And that was always really powerful. Then one of them, I did this program in Boulder called Techstars. So if you don't know what that is, it's sort of a seed incubator for companies to start. And I did that, and they told us a great piece of information that I think changed my life. Get on LinkedIn, find the most influential people and the craziest people you possibly want to connect to, and send them a really heartfelt note. Read their past and say, I really like that document you wrote or this thing that you wrote. 9 times out of 10, you're going to connect with some people that you couldn't imagine. I'm connected to like the CEO of Microsoft, or I've done a Microsoft commercial because of this now. So you could actually connect with people who are way beyond what you might think is your normal world, even if you don't think you're in their lane. Most people are really interested, especially around water, what we're doing here. I've never met anybody who says it's not important, right? So for me, it was really easy to kind of break into the water sector because what we're doing is important and what people want to hear, but also just reach out. Do 10 a day on LinkedIn. Literally, it's like a workout. Get on, find 10 people. And at some point, your network is long enough and big enough to almost accomplish anything, but you can't do it alone, right? None of us can. That's my view on networking.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. And so when people reach out to me and say they're being harassed by our students on LinkedIn, I'm going to send them all to you.
I'll connect with them. They'll all have great jobs in the future. Right? It'll work.
That's fantastic. And then speaking of LinkedIn, for those students in geography and sustainability, now we have a required professional development course at the 200 level. And so as part of that course, you will make a LinkedIn profile, connect with all of us, connect with your fellow students, some of the alumni who are coming in and doing alumni panels. So we'll get you kickstarted with that LinkedIn profile and those connections as well. We also have a Montfort College of Business entrepreneurial contest as well. And one of our sustainability freshmen actually won a few $1,000s to start a little business 2 years ago. So there are opportunities to do that as well. So come and talk to your advisors again. Thank you, Adam. Theron?
Yeah, I'd piggyback off what you just said. I had a few courses. I had a bunch of guys that I played ball with that were in business. And so I took some courses over in Montfort. And then within my master's degree, I had required communication core classes. I would just say in your undergrad, take a few of those because it helps put those into perspective. That's what those people do every day. And it's a science. They have a science of that. And as scientists, I think sometimes even myself, I get caught in like, I'm just looking at the soil profile, like whatever, but it's a huge part of your career is understanding how to communicate with people that maybe you're like Adam said, maybe you're a little, it's like intimidated by how big their career is, and but a lot of times they just started like you did. They were just somewhere with an idea, and they thought, I want to chase that down, and they put sweat equity to it, and they just went about it. So I would say no conversation is wasted if you look at it as a learning experience. And I would say that for any job, whether it's seasonal or whether it's just a part of your life where you're in a situation where you have to take a job because of circumstance, use it and network with it and get to know those people, because somewhere down the road, there's some spider web. I've always found it where that person is that person, and that person in 5 years is going to be your boss in a town 2 hours away. You know what I mean? So I would agree. And kudos to you guys for doing that professional development. That is awesome.
Thanks, Theron. Scott?
Network is something that I'll say grew my career. For the Division of Resources 19D, term really there in it, at least not from the today. Follow what Taryn said. What I would say is to learn in order to grow for your learn something interested in, want to participate, want to be involved. During my 20 years that I worked in Summit County, I volunteered for the community to try to network. I was on the Open Space Advisory Council for 14 years, chair for 10. And you need to take advantage of where you are to develop the kind of network you want to develop for the kind of career that you want to have. So don't be willy-nilly about it. If you want to be in water, choose some water conferences to go to and walk right up and shake hands of the guy that's in charge or the gal that's in charge, and introduce yourself. Take a risk.
Thank you, Scott. And just as a heads up, our department often takes students to conferences, not just our department, but Earth and Atmospheric Sciences does that as well. And also there's student Senate funds that are available to students if you want to go to a conference. And so we can support you in getting there to the place where you can do that networking. Katie?
Yeah, networking, I'll be honest, you guys, I know networking is not always super fun, but it is really important. Like everybody is hit on it. I know sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, like when I go to conferences or things like that, sometimes I definitely don't want to go to the networking happy hour, but it's worth it. You never know where people are going to end up down the road. Just as an example, someone that I went to UNC with, we had 1 year overlap before she graduated. She works for Resource Central now in Denver, and she's in a position where she and I are collaborating on a project for our own professional lives now. So it's a small world. You never know where people are going to end up. Never burn any bridges. It's kind of one thing that I try to live by with networking, because you never know who's going to end up being crucial to a project down the road. And I will say that, especially in the world of sustainability, it is a really small world. So reach out to people who are in similar positions. Obviously reach out when you're starting out, but even now, like I have some of my best conversations to come up with solutions to problems with other people who are in similar like sustainability positions. They can just be really great resources for coming up with solutions, not just like, hey, what can you do for me? Like, how can you help me get an interview? How can you help me? I like to view networking as like a two-way street. Like I personally, I hate getting LinkedIn messages from salespeople that are like, hello, Katie, can I sell you this product because you work for Denver Water? Personally, I'm not a fan of that, especially because I'm not the decision maker. But approaching it more as like a conversation is kind of like Adam said, like, hey, I loved that thing that you talked about in your profile. This is what I am doing, and this is what I want to do. So just not viewing it as a transaction, but a conversation.
Thank you, Katie. So this is our last curated question. So if folks who are watching, and I'm not sure if there's other classes on here, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A because we'll address them after this question is done. So we're gonna go through the panelists in our original order. So Katie, Theron, Adam, and Scott. And I'd like to ask you to discuss career and job prospects for students who are close to graduating. It's a very nervous time, as I'm sure you all can remember. Can you provide a final word of advice for our UNC Bears who are looking to enter your industry?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to take an opportunity that will just open a different door. Like I said, like at Denver Water specifically, you might be really interested in working with our water resource team, but there might not be anything open. But maybe there is something open in a different division. Apply for it. You never know. There's lots of moving around. Don't be afraid of doing that. Since I specifically was hired through a temp agency, I also like to give the advice that don't shy away from doing that type of temp work, because it could very well end up being permanent. You might need to be patient. And you know, I was patient for a really long time. I was only made permanent a year ago. So, you know, hold on, it'll happen for you. But yeah, I would say specifically Denver Water, we're always hiring for lots of variety of positions, and the city is similar, I think, in that way from when I was there. So lots of opportunities with like government or government-esque, as we are at Denver Water.
Thank you, Katie. Theron?
Yeah, I would echo that, is that no opportunity is a bad opportunity if you take it in the right mental lens. I would also say something that I picked up from just being in athletics and then how I started my career is don't shy your nose away from something maybe like a trade. I know right out, you just got this degree and you got 4 years and you're like, oh, I should jump here. But I went right into arboriculture, which is a lot of chainsaws and chippers and hot days and stuff like that. And I can't tell you how much that's paid off already and how much it will pay off when I finally get kind of settled into the groove into where I plan to be. So it's something, and then on top of it, it also helps you in your personal life. You know, if you can pick up a trade, that's applicable to your house. You know, I picked up arboriculture and all that stuff. I don't pay anybody to put up fences anymore. I don't pay anybody to raise chickens or tear down trees or anything. I can do that myself. And so don't turn your nose to those. I don't think I had a little bit of that coming out. I was a little bit like, came from a family that was in agriculture and worked a lot in labor. So I was like, maybe if I can pull myself out of this, I don't always want to be the meathead jock or whatever. And then I went back into that and I learned very quick, like, okay, this is very useful. And if it's combined with the critical thinking skills that you learn from your professors, it's not one-to-one, it's exponential. It just rockets your career because you understand a bigger picture of the administrative side, the labor side, everything in between. And so I think that's big for me. And like Katie said, just keep working the bag, apply to everything. Apply if it's way big, something like a manager over, you know, I know buddies that were like applying for CPW wildlife managers over like a huge district of Colorado, a couple years experience, and they just shot for it and they got it because they were able to swing and they were able to prove themselves. And so I just say, be competitive, have a healthy competition in everything you do and push yourself, and you'll be surprised where you can go really quickly if you use the things that these professors teach you and then the drive that you're taught in college.
Thank you, Theron. Adam?
Well, you guys both just summed up almost everything I wanted to say. I think that hard work part is so critical. And you're right, Theron, if you can basically go against yourself, you're like, I don't care what, oh, I'm cutting trees down. Well, I will be the best in the world. And they were going to be super bummed when I leave. If that's your attitude all the time, you will keep climbing the ladder because people will see no matter what, like this person has the attitude and the self-preservation to make it wherever. And I think that's, in my opinion, the strongest, that's who I hire or who I promote within any of my companies. A lot of the people who are now running the company I don't work at anymore were like interns or people who just started or software engineers. And 5 years now, they're all making really good money being professional, you know, high level software managers or data scientists, or, you know, they're actually out making products. So to me, it was always the people who worked hard, the people who sort of felt like they were owed something. They usually got weeded out pretty quick. I think this industry, water, is a hard working industry. My customers, the people I work with, none of them are like fat cat sitting on lots and lots of money. They're all hardworking people who make their money work for them. And to be honest, that's how water is. And I think it's great. We're probably all saying that because we went to Greeley, but again, Greeley's a hardworking town. That's a place where people work. And if you went to that school, it wasn't just for fun, right? You kind of went there because you had a goal and you were going to do something. And so to me, it's put that effort in. And again, exactly like you said there, I don't care if it's not the exact dream job, just go work so hard in that lower version of the job that people can't help but notice you.
Thank you, Adam. Scott?
I have to say I'm very proud to be a UNC Bear. You three are outstanding individuals, and our state's better off for having you do what you do. So thank you. For those that are just graduating, I got to agree with everybody else for the most part. Have confidence in yourself. Take a risk. Don't be afraid to do it. Be flexible. Everybody can work outside the box. It's not a hard thing to do. And when we do work outside of the box, we usually get more done and we're more successful. Lots of internships available. I know with the Division of Water Resources, for example, there are a number of part-time water commissioner jobs across the state. I'm going to put my plug in for the Division of Water Resources. You know, if you want to work for the Division of Water Resources, these are where their main offices are: Steamboat, Durango, Glenwood Springs, Alamosa, Pueblo, Greeley. So, you know, it's a variety of different places and there are a variety of different jobs. And not everybody has to be a scientist. Not everybody has to have a 4-year degree. You just need to want to work.
Thank you, Scott. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I think you need to take pride in what you do. And I always took pride knowing that as a native Coloradoan, I took pride working for the state of Colorado and working with our most precious natural resource. We don't get to make any more of it. And the population of my hometown is 9 times greater than it was the year I was born. Our water supply certainly isn't. So keep that in mind.
Thank you, Scott. And that's an important perspective because the federal reports are that the water workforce is growing. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunities there for jobs and potential careers. We have one question so far in the Q&A asking, what are some technical skills that you use the most often? So Theron and Katie, you answered this in the text. Could you share for the folks who are watching the video recording so we have that captured? Go ahead, Theron.
Yeah, I would say at DWR, like Scott spoke on, access is big. Access as well, or sorry, Access and Excel are 2 big ones. So Microsoft Suite, that whole suite of applications. The state also starting to go over to Google applications. So if you understand docs or sheets or things like that, similar to Excel, it's the processes. Keeping up with those, keeping up with water law, understanding how water moves with the prior appropriation doctrine in Colorado if you want to be in DWR. And then along with that, something like, I know it's dropped recently, but statistically over the years, something over 3/4 of the water that you see is going to agriculture. So understanding soil science, understanding geomorphology to some degree, and hydrogeology if you have that opportunity. Those things are big because understanding where the water is going to flow, how that tailwater is going to work, and how that soil is absorbing or releasing that water, so that the stream system, you understand the depletions, you understand the accretions, all those things are big if you're in DWR. And then I just plug one more thing on, I know I'm talking out of turn here a little bit, but I do want to echo what Adam said. I had a lot of people that I played ball with that unfortunately felt like they were a drag in Greeley. Oh, it's Greeley, it smells and all this stuff. But I think if you take advantage of what Greeley was built on and that real hard work that those people who came and dug out Union Colony and made a life there, I think that seeps into UNC. And so if you can grab onto that culture where you're in Greeley as an undergrad or a master's student, it's going to help you anywhere, because that's the salt of the earth people that built that place and built that college up. Really, they set the tone in the water world. for sure, and land conservation as well. What I plan to be in, geomorphology, natural resources in general. So just a little plug there. Sorry, speak out of turn.
Thanks, Theron. Katie, about what you added regarding technical skills?
Yeah, I also agree. Yeah, like the Microsoft suite is huge. So Excel, I'm in Excel all the time. One thing that I didn't add in the chat, this is pretty niche, but like we specifically use energy cap, but I know that's a big commodities tracking for a lot of companies nationally. So I would just say the skill is being able to learn new softwares, being teachable, being coachable. Actually, again, also I'm going to speak out of turn. That's my biggest piece of advice, is always be coachable. That's the number one life skill that I think everyone should have. The other thing that I did put in the chat to be on topic is report writing and like technical writing. So we often have to do reports to the Denver Water Board of Water Commissioners to explain this is what we've been up to. Like, they want to know, like, how are we doing on our sustainability goals? So you have to be able to express that in a way that is concise and quick. And we also do have to do a lot of research on different projects and be able to be persuasive when talking to either our executives or the board, if we're going to the board for certain things, like providing a business case. So that kind of writing is very important.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie and Theron. Adam and Scott, anything to add about technical skills?
I'd just say that from Division of Water Resources perspective, you still need to know how to read a paper map, for example, a quad map. You need to know where you're going on the ground. So there are some of the modern technology that have to put aside and still do things the old-fashioned way, and that cannot be forgotten, or you will get lost. Literally.
Agreed.
And I think, well, on top of that, and honestly, what you said first, Katie, GIS, or like geographical information systems like Esri, man, learning how to use Esri was the coolest thing for me just as a person. You can like pull open a map and you're like, well, how much do these people make in general? Like, what's their water risk? How many like people were injured in this area? Almost all of that information is available in ArcGIS or Esri, if you're familiar with those things. And as a student, you can get into most of these things for basically free right now. That's a lesson I learned, is the moment you're not a student and you go to use MATLAB or Mathematica or ArcGIS, and you're like, well, the students get it for like $8 and it's $4,000 for me. And they do that on purpose. So use it, if you get in early, you can usually transfer that for 5 years after you're in school. So I guess one other piece of advice, sign up for MATLAB and Mathematica and Esri while you can, because those things are really cool tools if you learn how to use them, and they are very expensive after school.
Chelsea, one more thing.
Sure, Scott.
If I'm, if you're a geography major, spend some time on the ground. Don't be inside. Look around. Find that. Go someplace you haven't been before. Learn about it. Find out what the water's doing there. Geographers are outside people, not inside people. Just my own pet peeve.
Although we do a lot of stuff inside, so be ready to be on a computer. For those who are wondering where GIS classes live, they're under the GEOG or Geography Prefix. So that's where we find GIS. So we're out of time, so we're going to have to end here. But I just want to say thank you so much to all of our panelists. I really appreciate your time here today, sharing with our current students and those in the future who will be watching this video. Theron sent me a direct message, which I thought was a really lovely quote to end from his father, who said, "Grow where you are planted." So thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all for joining us. Just to do a little bit of housekeeping to wrap up. We will have this recording available on the alumni website. You can go to unco.edu/alumni/careers, where you can access all of our on-demand alumni career panels for any of the industries that we featured this year or prior years. And if any of our students or any of our alumni watching have ideas or interests for future career panels and topics, we're always looking. We want to make sure that these are providing you access to your Bear network and the expertise of our alumni. And as you probably learned today, we have some phenomenal alumni who have excellent industry insight and expertise that we want to share with our students. So if you have ideas, please reach out to the alumni office or to your faculty to work with us to produce these for the future. And I want to just close with echoing what Scott said. I am so proud to be a UNC Bear. I am an alumna of this university as well. And every time I hear our alumni speak, including today, I am affirmed that the quality of education that we afford our students and the access we provide is phenomenal. And I think that's evidenced by what our alumni shared with us. So thank you all for joining. I'm going to end the webinar now, but as I mentioned, you'll be able to access this recording on the alumni website as well as through our faculty partners. So thank you and have a wonderful day.